caution and careful planning, could not anticipate the chain of mistakes that was about to unfold. Because when pride comes into play, even the most tightly controlled operations start to fall apart. And in the summer of 2018, that fall had already begun.
In the shadows of Warrington, two brothers, Alan and John Tobin, quietly built what would become one of the UK's most lucrative and dangerous drug distribution networks. Estimated to have moved over £20 million worth of Class A drugs across the country, their criminal enterprise was a blend of strategic logistics, encrypted communications, and street-level enforcement. But in 2020, one police seizure and a viral exposé video set in motion the collapse of a criminal empire years in the making.
Cocaine, 57 kilos of ketamine and 78 kilos of cannabis between the months of March and May 2020. The Tobins both admitted conspiracy to supply drugs, and the judge said these types of cases caused devastation to individuals.
The Tobin brothers were not flamboyant gangsters. They didn't parade around with flashy watches or post stacks of cash on social media. They were businessmen. Cold, calculating, and determined to make their operation look legitimate from the outside. They used a string of nondescript industrial units and unmarked vehicles to move huge shipments of cocaine across the UK.
The Tobins weren't flashy. They didn't parade their wealth across social media or throw parties in expensive cars. Instead, they ran a multi-million-pound business with precision, discipline, and ruthless efficiency. For more than 4 years,
their major customers? High-ranking members of other criminal gangs. Notably, two of their biggest clients were Jamie Oldroyd and Jamie Simpson, prominent Warrington-based figures who acted as key regional distributors. These men controlled their own networks, bringing in and pushing out drugs supplied by the Tobins, creating a layered empire of crime hidden in plain sight.
Then bundled the injured men into a van and dropped them near Mr. Hall's home on Crab Street in St. Helens and called an ambulance. Overall, their ordeal lasted several hours.
Warrington, once a quiet Cheshire town, became a central node in a vast narcotics network. The drugs would move in the same way as parcels from an Amazon warehouse, tracked, dispatched, delivered. Except this wasn't 2-day shipping. It was 186 kilograms of cocaine, with a street value of £20 million, intercepted on the M6 in August 2018. That one haul was the UK's largest land-based seizure of its kind.
using encrypted communication devices, layers of trusted couriers, and specially adapted vehicles with hidden compartments.
Behind the logistics were layers of security. The Tobins relied on encrypted EncroChat devices, burner phones, and legitimate front businesses to conceal their operation. Yet their calm professionalism also bred complacency. Believing themselves untouchable, they grew careless. Associates began bragging, money got louder, surveillance intensified. Unbeknownst to them, National Crime Agency operatives had begun collecting a mountain of evidence. For over a year, investigators followed their couriers, tapped encrypted messages, and tracked their movements. The Tobin brothers' operation, although sophisticated, was not immune to the relentless attention of law enforcement. For over a year, the National Crime Agency operated in the shadows, gathering intelligence and monitoring the entire network.
But by the Tobin brothers' massive supply chain. Breaking it would take more than a single arrest. It would take patience, precision.
As the Tobin brothers' network continued to operate with increasing audacity, little did they know that their downfall was approaching from an unexpected source. A leaked exposé video that would turn everything upside down. In late 2020, an anonymous source, believed to be a former associate, released a bombshell video onto YouTube. The video, though simple in appearance, contained damning evidence that was a game-changer for law enforcement. It revealed images of financial ledgers, warehouse deliveries, and encrypted chat logs linking back to the Tobin network. It was the digital match to a pile of forensic dry tinder.
But through the criminal underworld, a haul of this size couldn't be kept quiet, and for those connected to it, panic set in almost instantly. The couriers arrested at the scene said little, but detectives already had enough. The van had been under surveillance, the routes were known, the faces identified.
Within days, media outlets picked it up. Police forces across the Northwest launched coordinated raids. More than a dozen individuals were arrested. Among them were Oldroyd and Simpson, both charged with conspiracy to supply Class A drugs. The Tobin brothers, finally exposed, were arrested and brought to trial. Alan and John Tobin's empire was built not only on a foundation of cold calculation and meticulous organization, but also on terror and fear. They ran their operation with the same level of ruthlessness and discipline that one would expect from a cartel, and they used similar tactics to keep their network in check. For those who worked for them, stepping out of line was simply not an option. Anyone who dared to betray or cross the Tobins faced harsh repercussions.
Place at Liverpool Crown Court, where prosecutors laid out the full extent of the conspiracy. With overwhelming evidence gathered through months of surveillance, phone interceptions and raids, the scale of the operation was undeniable. At the heart of it stood two figures, Jamie Oldroyd and Jamie Simpson.
The court proceedings that followed were extensive. The Tobin brothers pleaded guilty in 2021. Alan Tobin was sentenced to 20 years, and John received 19 years and 8 months. Prosecutors revealed that their empire had trafficked hundreds of kilos of cocaine over multiple years, and their client list read like a who's who of Britain's underworld.
High-purity cocaine. The drugs were hidden expertly. The van had been specially adapted with large metal drawers installed beneath a false floor, making the load almost invisible to casual inspection.
Their downfall has become a textbook case in law enforcement strategy, not because they were taken down in a gunfight or betrayed by rivals, but because of an exposé and data from their own communication tools. A reminder that even the most sophisticated operations can unravel under digital scrutiny. Their overconfidence in secure communication methods, like burner phones, ultimately led to their downfall when law enforcement was able to intercept and decrypt their messages.
Two men gathered around a table in a modest house in Gorse Covert. On the table, more than £150,000 in cash, stacked high beside luxury watches. In the background, laughter, carelessness, arrogance.
The exposé video was a turning point, not just for the Tobins, but also for law enforcement's approach to modern criminal enterprises. It underscored the growing influence of digital evidence in criminal investigations, especially when combined with traditional surveillance methods. It was a stark reminder that in the digital age, nothing is truly private, and even the most secure communications can eventually be cracked.
Alan was handed a further 8 years behind bars for conspiring to cause grievous bodily harm, with intent to both Liam Byrne Jr. and Sr.
From quiet Cheshire warehouses to £20 million worth of high-purity cocaine, the Tobin brothers' empire wasn't just a local gang, it was a national supply chain. What brought it all down wasn't just the law, it was arrogance, and in the end, the internet. The viral exposé video, combined with years of intercepted data, proved to be their undoing, and they were left vulnerable to the very technology they once relied on to stay hidden